Okay, excellent. So I just wanted to just start out just by saying, you saying your name and if you grew up in Hammond, what street you grew up on and your age. So the name, age, and what street you grew up on or live currently.
Name is Anthony Higgs. I currently live on Moore Street. I was born and raised in Hammond. My birthplace was St. Margaret's Hospital, and I am 48 years old, the only African-American elected official in the city of Hammond.
Okay, excellent. So Morris Street. So did you actually grow up on Morris Street, or that's just where you live now?
Well, we were one street over prior to moving on Moore Street, so we used to live on Merrill Street, then we moved to Morris.
Okay. Let's go to Merrill Street just for a second. Who was in your house? Like, say your name, your mother and your father, and then any siblings.
Well, my brother, David Tyrone Higgs, my mother, Audrey Higgs, and David Higgs, my father, who's now deceased.
Okay. And what did your dad do for a living?
My dad worked at Pullman Steel for a number of years in the city of Hammond. He retired from the city of Hammond.
Okay. Pullman Standard. All right there. Okay. And how about your mom, Audrey?
My mom worked various jobs at the hospital, and she also babysitted kids as well.
Okay. Okay. As far as your neighbors, if you remember any of those neighbors to your right, left, across the street, just I'm trying to build the environment.
Which street are you talking about?
Well, the first street,
Justine, Sadie Blackman, the Blackmans, Miss Hannon, Miss Hannon, and those are the people that I can remember back then.
Okay. And what about the second street where you live now?
Josie Martis and Mr. Martis, Mr. and Mrs. Ray, which was a Hispanic family, Deborah Hall, Irvin Hall, and Mary Hall, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, the Joneses, Ricky, Wilbert, Benny, Lewis, Deborah. Then there was another Jones family where there was a Ricky, Paul, Pam, Mitchell, and I can't remember the rest of them, but that was for the most part. And then you had Linda Freeman and Mr. Freeman on the end. And you also had the Antoines on the other end of the block.
Antoines, okay.
Dexter Antoine.
Okay.
And Jillian Antoine.
And Jillian, okay. Okay, so what was when in growing up? Am I assuming you went to say the elementary school, like maybe where'd you go? Like
I went to Maywood Elementary School, then I went to middle school at Eggers Middle School, and then I graduated from Hammond High School. Class of 85.
Class of 85. Okay, excellent. So give me a little bit of an idea of how it was growing up in Hammond, say going to Maywood School and just your crew. I assume that you walked to school and this, that, and the other. Go ahead.
It was a close-knit. Everyone looked out for one another. The parents were very actively involved in our day-to-day activities in the community as well as in school. Parents were really just really involved and watched out for one another. Even if you did something in front of someone else's parent, not only did you get a spanking there, but you got one when you got home. So that was the type of environment we had.
Okay, that is the through line of this whole thing, that it takes a village to raise a child, and even if you had to get spanked by somebody else. Okay, and so who was your crew? The guys that you or girls that you hung out with? Who'd you hang out with?
I hung out with Benny Jones, Lewis Jones, Wilbur Jones, Jerry Jones. Then the Sheltons, of course, lived across the street, which were my cousins, where you had Michelle Shelton, Johnny V, Maurice, Durrell, and Mo Shelton, and their mom was there, Ella Shelton, as well. And I was in and out of that house. Also, the Whites lived across the street, Tanya White and Michelle and Wanda, and all of them were also across the street. Then you also had, I forgot, the Robesons also lived across the street from me for a number of years, Mr. and Mrs. Robeson. And then you had Cleo was their dad, and Doris was their mother, and then you had Phyllis and Wayne and Clint,
Hmm.
and yeah, so those were some of the people that I hung out with. It was, you know,
Okay. Now, did most of them end up going to Hammond High with you?
yeah, the majority of them, everybody basically went to the same schools, and we all either continued our education or graduated from the Hammond Public School System.
Okay. So the environment of Hammond, and you mentioned um, I guess the concept of it takes a village to raise a child, and so saying that you had a close-knit a group of people from the Joneses, the Sheltons, the Whites, Robertsons, they're just a close-knit people on your streets. Did that idea perpetuate all around the neighborhood? I would just say East Hamlin, even if they weren't your street?
Yeah, basically everyone knew each other, and everybody, if you wasn't related to someone, you knew who their parents were and, basically their history. Unlike now, it's very, very different. The community has changed quite a bit.
Mm, okay. And what about the makeup of the neighborhood, the cultural blend of the makeup, your street and stuff? What was it? What did it look like? Was it predominantly black, predominantly white?
Predominantly black at that point. It was predominantly black. We had one Hispanic family, which was the Rays, and one white family on our block at that point.
Okay. Okay. And so in elementary school, let's see, that was roughly let's see, what years was that for you in like Maywood?
Maywood, you talking the
That the
number of years
set,
about, I don't know the exact year off the top of my head, but
it's like 70s and
yeah, the 70s, yeah. Well,
right.
right.
And then and since you graduated from high school in '85, you went there around '81 and
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went to high school in 81, graduated in 85.
Okay. And around that time, what was the racial blend in school? Was Hammond High School predominantly black there, or was it
It
say
was a
Latin?
mixture. It was a
A
mixture.
mixture?
Hmm We
Okay.
had Hispanics, but the majority it was African American, but there were quite a few Hispanic as well as white students there.
Mhm. Okay. And did everyone get along?
Yeah, the relationship has always been close knit as a whole when it comes to um, working together. Back then, everybody just basically worked together and tried to get along with one another. So um, I didn't see any differences in regards to that particular high school. Our middle school is, in fact.
Okay. And so do you remember any of say, the movers and shakers around the time that you were in high school, like
Miss
from
Goldie,
elementary to high school?
Miss
Go
Goldie
ahead.
Jefferson, who's deceased, Mr. Jewel Alexander, Miss Pearline Jenkins, which was very active in the Hammond chapter of the NAACP.
Mm-hmm.
And she was not only active in the NAACP, but she was active in the school city as well. And so when there was ever an issue that came up in regards to relationships and things that took place in the school system, she would immediately get involved in the process.
Okay. So you got Goldie, Jewel, Pearline. Anybody else?
That I can remember at that point. Those are the ones that really you know,
Those are the main ones.
main ones that I can recall. Mr. J.P. Davis was involved to a certain degree as well. You had Miss King, Kalata King, who's been actively involved in the community as well for a number of years. Miss Olame Brown, she also has been active in the community for a number of years. Those are some of the people that I remember being actively involved.
Okay. Okay. So what, in terms of your political career, what from Hammond High School to where you are now, what led you towards that profession as opposed to, working at Pullman Standard or any place else? Why did you choose that?
What happened was there were, I've seen a number of things that were not being taken care of in the community as a whole, and I felt the need to step to the plate and get actively involved, and I ran for precinct committeeman, and John Smerger was running for mayor at that particular time, and I did such a wonderful job with helping him. He didn't get elected, of course, but I did a wonderful job in terms of helping him, and so he was so impressed that he encouraged me to run for precinct committeeman, and I ran for precinct committeeman and been one ever since, and that's been over about 24 years.
Okay. Okay. And so what were some of the things that you saw that could be better in the community that you helped implement?
Well, of course, the school system certainly needs direction and help in regards to that, and in terms of addressing the needs in the African American community. There were a number of things. Our parks were not what I thought they should look like. Our streets were not being maintained. Our alleys were not being maintained to the point where I felt there was a need for someone to speak out and address these issues. And so that encouraged me to run for office. And the first time I ran, I lost, and then the second time I won.
Okay. Okay. What happened in the middle of the lost and won? Anything significant?
Well, all it did was actually prepared me for the next time I ran when I lost, and it really gave me an opportunity to really research and look throughout the community and address some of the concerns that wasn't being addressed, and starting programs like the Back to School giveaway that I do annually, and 3-on-3 tournament that I do for the youth annually, and addressing some of the concerns for our seniors, like our annual Thanksgiving dinner that we give annually at the Mount Zion Pleasant View Plaza. And not to mention, I forgot, one of the other mover and shaker was Dr. Reverend A.R. Burns, Dr. A.R. Burns. Reverend Burns was very instrumental and that was actually one of the churches that was really actively involved in the community. And before he passed away, he was able to get a senior high-rise built on Kenwood in the city of Hammond, which is in my district, and it still currently exists, and something that's very dear to me.
Okay. Okay. So was that a part of the urban renewal, that particular structure?
That
or
section, at that time,
yeah,
they did the urban renewal, and they tore down a bunch of homes. And I can remember Reverend Burns having to actually go all the way to Washington, D.C. to try to secure funds for the senior high-rise.
Okay. What I'm sure it was a multi-million-dollar piece. How much do you think it was?
I don't know exactly how much, but yeah, I would say it was quite a few $1 million. And a number of them still, they have an interest. The church has an interest in that property, as well as a private company, I think.
Okay. So it's not all Mount Zion
No, it's a community
members.
project, but no.
It's a
But they
community.
have some of their board members. Some of the church members are board members as well, and I think that's the way it was set up, so that always they would have some say-so in the senior high-rise.
Okay. So in terms of that urban renewal, I know Conkey Street, which is actually where I grew up on, went through a big change. On the
Conkey,
11.
Fields, Merle, and Morris.
Okay,
That was
Conkey, Fields, Merle, and Morris.
right, and that was the 1000 blocks. And then you had all the Reverend Burns Drive, which they renamed after Dr. Burns. Reverend Burns, that was all urban renewal. So there are nothing but new homes on that from Merrill Street to 164th.
Okay. Now, did you remember the time when Conkey Street was?
Excuse
Go
me.
ahead.
Also, Kenwood as well is one
And
block.
Kenwood.
About 1000. The 1100 block of Kenwood is also urban renewal. They did a number of new homes there.
So what kind of difference did that make? The whole refurbishing of community, that part of the community.
It basically made the community look much better with all the new homes, and it attracted more people to actually want to move in the 3rd District in the city of Hammond, and particularly in that area.
Okay.
And all those homes are currently maintained, and people live in them as we speak. It's not one of them are vacant.
Okay. And now at one point there were a lot of businesses on Conkey Street, from I guess a few hotels to a couple markets or grocery stores. I know there are taverns and
you used to have Brooks House as well.
Brooks House
which was a youth center where we went as a kid, and you were able to do recreations as well as read books and whatnot. Also, one other person that was actively involved in the community when we think of Brooks House was Miss Willa McDurr, who was very instrumental in a lot of the youth in the community, and really involved in Brooks House as a kid, taking the kids and reading, helping them learn how to read in the library and all that. So.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you think that, or how do you feel about the businesses at one point that were on Conkey Street, and now there's just homes there? And do you think that now there is possibly a decrease on entrepreneurship in terms of people starting their own companies and businesses and this, that, and the other? Is there less of that happening?
From growing up in what we call as East Hammond, which is the 3rd District of the city of Hammond, there were a number of businesses, and preferably there were actually a lot of African American businesses. Now I don't see that, and that's something that needs to be addressed and something that needs to take place to some form of fashion of trying to bring those type of resources back into the community. There were a number of bars and hotels and stuff as a kid, and Conkey Street was a main thoroughfare when I was growing up. Now all you see is homes. Right.
And it's kind of like it's beautified. I mean, it's very those are nice homes, brick homes. It's different from homes in the other parts of East Hammond. And but on the other side, there's not a lot of businesses there that are owned by African Americans. So what do you think it'll take to, especially now that you have a political nature about you, what do you think it'll take to get some of that entrepreneurship happening and get some of those, African Americans to own certain businesses? What do you think it takes?
Resources, of course, and certainly workshops, and it would take the city showing an interest of trying to attract those type of businesses in the community as well.
Okay. Is there a mindset of people wanting to own businesses and maybe not having the resources?
Yeah, I hear a lot of people saying they would like to start a business, but a lot of them don't have the necessary know-how of trying to obtain and getting the information that's needed. So I try to funnel down the information and give them as much resources that I have available to me as possible to try to get them off and started.
Okay. Is there a SBA affiliation with the Hammond Urban Renewal, and even as far as the uh, what is it, the Chamber of Commerce and the different organizations that will get you going? Is there kind of that research there?
They're not reaching out in the African American community in regards to trying to give them any direction. A lot of the information you have to basically just do your own research, and that's something I've been trying to influence those um, resources and people that are currently facilitating those type of organizations to get the information to throughout the community so people know what's available to them and how to utilize that information.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of a process, for people who are maybe new business owners or had businesses in the past and maybe lost it or whatever, and the people who want to start new businesses, do you think there will be an A to Z instructional, not guide, but resources that will say, hey, look, if you want to start a business, you first have to do this, 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 and then go to SBA, have your finances in order so you can get the loan and this, that, and the other. And even if those loans are available to African Americans in East Hammond, because that's been the biggest deficit of businesses, African American businesses around the country, is that those loans weren't available to African Americans because the criteria was either too high, too stringent, and or there was a imbalance or disparity in our criteria as opposed to, say, if you came from Cambodia or something or some other place. It appeared that you can get a loan faster if
Right.
you were. So does Hammond suffer from that kind of?
Certainly, and I mean, the resources that are available, they're not being shared to the point where people are really knowledgeable of what's available to them. So it's a lot of work in regards to trying to get the information and trying to get it to the right people that are really serious and interested in trying to secure loans to start their own business and finding rebates or whatever is available in regards throughout the city or through the Chamber of Commerce or whether it be economic development, Hammond redevelopment, or whatever it may be. Those are things that really need to be put out there for the community so that they are aware of what's available to them, and that way they can try to utilize the resources that are there.
Okay. And incidentally, on a kind of sidebar note, is that this project is also affiliated with a website that we're constructing now, and it'll be called East Hammond. But if you or any other powers that be would like to write an article, because there's going to be a section with articles listing how the ABCs and how to get an actual company going, business going, or and even if it's not a brick and mortar business, even if it's say internet or any other form, if because you are connected with the powers that be. So
Mm-hmm.
if by chance you did come up with a how-to
Mm-hmm.
in the form of an article, we would love to run it on this website. So I'm just going to throw
Certainly,
it out
that's
there.
something I could work on and try to get it to you and get it so it's publicized so people are aware of what's available to them.
That would be great, because knowledge is king, and if you kind of don't know about it, a big bowl of money can be sitting right there in City Hall, and no one knows to go
Right,
get it.
and
But
knowledge is
certain people,
power, and the more you're knowledgeable of what's available to you, the better you're in position to utilize it. So,
yes, for sure. So, and you also mentioned education. What when you were growing up at and going to Hammond High, were there internships that were available to you in any area or any of the students there?
they had internships, but they were few and far in between, you know,
Okay.
and there were selective few that would basically be eligible for that, of course, but yeah, very few, very few.
Very few. Okay. So, and that was part of another agenda of this site too, was to maybe approach companies to offer internships to people who are interested in a variety of different disciplines.
Right.
And
But I
and
will
with
mention
uh-huh,
one thing that the mayor and the council, and since I've been on the council, that we did
uh-huh,
create throughout the city, and that's the Hammond College Bound, where if you're own your own home, your parents own their own home, it gives you the power to actually secure college funding because you own a home in the city of Hammond and basically go to college for free. So it's a wonderful program, but I don't know how many more years we're going to be able to fund it, but it's been in existence for quite a while, for
okay,
probably
college.
about 9 years, I think.
About 9 years. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's how can one find out about that information?
Well, that information is available through City Hall. You can go through redevelopment and human resources through the city of Hammond, and they can get you the information, but you must be a homeowner. The
Right.
parents must own their own home, and there's criteria. Of course, you have to have a GPA of, I think, a 2.0, I think it is, and that's one of the criteria of it. And then when you're out of school, I think you have to do so many hours, community hours, in the city during the summer when you're out of school.
Okay.
So, but
Well,
it's a wonderful
that's not a
program.
very stringent. That sounds cool. I mean, at 2.0 is nothing,
Yeah.
and in community hours, well, you got to give back. So let me ask you something. Is the reason why you have a homeowner, you have to be a homeowner, is it because you're using your house as collateral,
Well,
or is it?
the purpose is to encourage families to move to Hammond, basically.
Okay. Okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. And so they're not really saying, take a second out on your home. They're just saying because you pay taxes and because you're a participating member of society, generating funds to the city, you're eligible for this program.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, okay. And that's some good information that I'm going to research so that can be posted on the site too. Um,
Certainly.
because people might or might not know about that it's even offered. And there's probably a lot of people who want to go to college and maybe fretting and saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe we don't have enough money, this, that, and the other. But there are grants all over the place
Right. Exactly.
if you're really serious about college, then just get on the internet and first your counselor at high school, just soak them of information. But then the internet, you